68 अक्षर ये ना जानो, 68 तीर्थ सार, 8 संपदा थी परमाणु, 68 दातार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ये छे 14 पुरवनो सार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ये छे 14 पुरवनो सार। नवपद एना नवनिध आपे, भव भवना दुख कापे, वीर वचन थी हृदय व्यापे, परमतम पद आपे, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ये छे 14 पुरवनो सार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ये छे 14 पुरवनो सार, एना महिमानो नहीं पार, एनो अर्थ अनंत अपार, एना महिमानो नहीं पार, एनो अर्थ अनंत अपार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ये छे 14 पुरवनो सार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ये छे 14 पुरवनो सार।
Pranam, Jai Jinendra, everybody. Welcome to this class, which will be the last for about a couple of weeks now. We'll not have a class on the 12th, that's next Tuesday, and the 19th,
91 divided by
because of
7.
pollution.
91 divided by 7.
All right. Let me share my slides and we'll start with the pratna. Let's start with the prayers. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukaro Sappapavapanasano Mangalanancha, Sabbesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukaro Sappapavapanasano Mangalanancha, Sabbesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukaro Sappapavapanasano Mangalanancha, Sabbesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Veera Sarasura Surendra Mahito Virambida Sanskrita Virena Bheta Swakarmani Chayo Viraya Nityam Nama Veera Tirthamidam Prautamatulam Virashaghoram Tapo Vire Shri Truti Kirtikanti Nichaya Sri Virabhadram Disa Anguthe Amrutavase Lapti Tana Bandar Sri Guru Gautam Samariya Manavanchita Fadadatar. As usual, we'll start with the Paresa Sajai and then I'll take you through what we are going to cover in the class today. Just to remind everybody, we had a session on the basic information about pollution and what to do on the Sunday gone with Jayesh Bhai and myself. And I was talking in English, translating what Jayesh Bhai was saying and adding a bit more. We'll have a second part of that session on the coming Sunday. So those of you who are able to, please join. This is the Sunday satsang starting at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings. The topic is Paryushan, last Sunday and the coming Sunday. So let's start with the Paresa Sachai. हर हे सर बाहुबले अभय कुमारो अडंडन कुमारो सिरियोणि आउतो अइमतो नागदत्तो मेज थुली बद्दो वैर ऋषि नंदी सेन सिंहगिरी कैवन्नो सुकोसल पुंडरियो के सी करकंडु हल विहल सुदंसण साल महासाल साली बद्दो बद्दो दसन बद्दो पसन चंदो अचस बद्दो जंबु पहु वंक चूलो गय सुकुमालो अवंति सुकुमालो दनो इलाई पुत्तो चिलाई पुत्तो अबाहु मुनि अजगिरी अज रखिए अज सुअथि उदायगो मणगो कालेश्वरी संभो पज्जुनो मूल देवो प्रभावो वीणु कुमारो अद कुमारो दड पहारी सिजन कुर गड्डू सिजम भव मेह कुमारो एमाई महासत्ता दिंतु सुहम गुण गणेहिम संजुता जैसिम नाम गहणे पाव बंदा विलेन जंती सुलसा चंदन बाला मनोरमा मयण रे हदमयंती नमया सुंदरी सिया नंदा बद्दा सुबदाय रायमय ऋषिदत्ता पौमावै अंजना श्रीदेवी जिट्ठ सुजिट्ठ मिगावै पपावै चलना देवी पंबी सुंदरी रूपिणी रेवै कुंती शिवा जयंतिया देवै दुवै धारिणी कलावै पुफ चूलाय पौमावै गौरी गांधारी लक्ष्मणा सुसीमाय जम्बुवै सच भामा रूपिणी कणहट्ठ महिषियो जखाय चखदीना भूत चे भूदिनाय सेना वेणा रेणा भैणियो थुली बद्दस इच्छाय महासयो जयंती अकलंक शील कलियाओ अजवी वज्जई जासिम जस पड़ो तिहोणे सयले. For the last 2 weeks, we have been talking about Kalikacharya, and as I mentioned before, there are 3 different Kalikacharyas that are mentioned in the sutras, and there are stories relating to all of them. We've heard the story of Kalikacharya, the first one, and last week the second one. And today we'll listen to the story of Kalikacharya, the third. There are lots of incidents described about this Kalikacharya, but we'll just cover a couple of them. One, as I mentioned last week, is relevant to Paryushan. Kalikacharya was extremely knowledgeable, and he was a great acharya and a great teacher. And some of the incidents that are described in the books about him is his efforts to ensure that his sishyas, that is the other monks under his care, continued to progress, and the way he teaches them lessons and what he does are 2 interesting stories about his methods, which are quite useful, but we won't be going into that for this particular session. Maybe sometime in the future we might bring those stories in, which if they are relevant to that particular topic. Kalikacharya was very well known in those times, and all these Kalikacharyas are people who have lived following Bhagwan Mahavir's Nirvan in the times, and I think the exact dates are not mentioned, but this Kalikacharya that who we are going to be talking about today is not somebody who is very far away in the past. He had become a monk at an early age and then progressed very well, and he had become extremely knowledgeable. One of the incidents that is described is relating to Paryushan. Formerly, in the past, originally Savantsari Parva, that is the 8th day of Paryushan, used to fall on Bhadrapad, so the month of Bhadra Sud Pancham. that is the 5th day of the month, the lunar month of Bhadra. Paryushan, as you know, starts in the month of Kartik. That will be next Tuesday. Kalikacharya was stationed in the city of Pend for the 4 months of Chomasu, that is the rainy season, the monsoon season, when monks do not normally travel from one place to another. They would normally stay in the same place for 4 months during the monsoon season, because monks don't travel when the land is wet, to avoid harming uh, many life forms that would be produced as a result of the rains. At that time, in the city of Pend, Kalikacharya was approached by King Salivahan of that particular city, state, country, with a request to change the date of Savansari Parva from the Bhadrasud Pacham to another day, because on that day the people of the town were busy with another festival called Indra Utsav. Kalikacharya, in his wisdom, seeing the benefits of that, uh, changed the date for the last day of Paryushan from the Pancham to the Chauth. That means a day before. So therefore, all the events of the 8-day festival obviously moved back by a day, because Kalikacharya was a very well versed with all the sastras that were around, and he was of a status where he could take such a decision, and that decision was adopted by all the Sanghs. And since that time onwards, in the Swatambar tradition, the last day of Paryushan falls on the Chauth. That will be this year on the 19th of September. Now, the second incident is quite interesting, and I haven't written it down here fully, but I will explain that to you. But before I start off with that, I just wanted to ask some of you a question, if you know the answer. Have you heard of Nigod? You mentioned this in the class before, but does anybody, I'm sure you heard of Nigod in different contexts. Anybody wants to volunteer? No? Bharat
Pranam Ajit bhai.
Bhai?
Nigod is simplest form of life. Basically, they are all one-sensed beings, and that's where we all start our lives from. And we have been in the Nigod state for an infinite time, and from there onwards, as you would do a calm nijara after coming from the avevar nivo to the vevar nigo or vevar nigo, that it will come, you'll get from one sense to two sense, and there on three sense, four sense, and so on.
Great. Thank you. Nilma, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think I remember vaguely you saying in one of the class that it's the one body shared by loads of soul.
Yep. and they've got an extremely short lifespan. They say within the time that it takes for a breath, that is a swasoswas, they born and die about 17 and a half, they born and die 17 and a half times. So extremely short lifespan, large number sharing just one body. And as Bharat Bhai has said, we all start that is the state where we would have been for an extremely long time. And we are released from Bijal. Before I carry on, do you want to add anything?
Pranam, yes, I was going to say that for every one soul that goes to Siddhashila, that's when one soul can be released from Nigodh,
Yes.
as I understand it.
Yes, no, you're right. So that's what I was going to add, but thank you for adding that. So any soul that goes to moksha, meaning gets rid of all its karmas, and at the end of that life goes up to moksha, at that point a soul is released from nigodh to get into circulation. As Bharat Bhai was explaining, it is from avyavvar rasi. Vyavvar is circulation, vyavvar is that you are in business. Until you are in avyavvar rasi, there is no scope of getting out of there. But a soul that goes to moksha gives us the greatest gift of releasing us from nigodh, and we've all started our journey because of somebody going to moksha. Nilma?
Just got a question. Because in Jainism, do we not always say that how our soul progresses depending on our own karmas?
Yes.
So why would in this particular instance, if another soul has gone to moksha, so all their good deeds have got them somewhere nice, which would take this particular soul out of nigodh. So why is there a dependent on somebody else's soul?
It is not dependent on their action. It is dependent on the nature of how things work in nature, that once one soul goes to moksha, we can imagine that there is space available, and the soul that gets released from nigodh, from the avyavvar rasi to vyavvar rasi, so they may still end up in nigodh, but they are now, the soul is now capable of progressing from that position as a nigodh jeev to other more one-sensed lives, and then further 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents, 5 cents. So progress is possible for them. And that is a complete lottery. It is not because you deserve it or there is any merit. It is something that we have all benefited from. And in life, in our journey through from nigodh to moksha, I've said this in the past, that there are two lotteries. One is this lottery when you get released from nigodh, and that is completely, totally by chance, not due to any effort. The second lottery is when the soul achieves samyaktva, because at that time, when once one achieves samyaktva for the first time, the future journey towards moksha is extremely has would become extremely limited. So from that point onward, your future journey to moksha is guaranteed. And even though that future can be extremely long, compared with what's gone in the past, that future journey is actually extremely short. So our release from Nigod is not because of us having done anything meritorious. Our state in Nigod is something that where all life begins. It's not as a result of somebody creating or controlling this. These are natural laws. This is something that nature is designed like that, and this is how it works. Subsequent to our release from Nigod, depending on many different conditions and many different efforts that we may accomplish, and luck, and also something called bhavitavyata. So our progress is then slowly from one life to another, but there are at only a more advanced stage, our efforts begin to bear fruit in terms of our progress. But everything that we do in between obviously attracts karmas. Those karmas are then attached to the soul, so ashrav and then bandh, and the effect of that karma, the duration of that karma, etc., are all decided upon at that time. And at the correct time, if that karma has not changed in the period from the time it was formed to the time when it is meant to come in fruition, it will show its effect. Maybe not exactly as it was destined to at the time of the bandh of that karma, but in whatever form it has then since been modified, and then give us the rewards or the punishment of that particular karma. So that carries on after that release from Nigod until a certain time, but our efforts begin to bear fruit in terms of our progress only when we begin to understand our true natures and the nature of the universe, the rules that it's governed by, as explained to us by our great Tirthankar Paramatmas. The reason why this particular topic came up is that around the time when Kalikacharya was in our land, that is Bharat Kshetra, Indra, that is the king of gods from the first Devlok, was once in Mahavideh Kshetra in the presence of Sri Simandar Swami. As you all know or may have heard, Simandar Swami is one of the 20 Tirthankar Paramatmas who are currently alive and spreading Jain Dharma in 20 different areas. The nearest one to us is Pukhalwai Vijay in Mahavideh Kshetra, that is nearest to us. And there we have Simandar Swami. Indra Maharaja is in the Sabha of Simandar Swami and asks him the nature of Nigod. And Simandar Swami explained this to him in great detail. Then Indra is wondering if there is anybody in Bharat Kshetra, is obviously aware that the Bharat Kshetra's level of, there is no Keval Gnani in Bharat Kshetra, and the knowledge that was present during the time of Bhagwan Mahavir has gradually been dwindling in all this time. So he wonders if there is anybody in Bharat Kshetra who can explain to him the nature of Nigod with this in a similar fashion that Simandar Swami Bhagwan has explained this to him. So he's just curious and he's trying to understand how good or how depleted the state of the available knowledge is in our land, that is Bharat Kshetra, at that time. I mean, whatever was available at that time has since constantly been eroded. So what we know now is significantly less than what was known even during the time of Kalikacharya. And we all know that, and we've heard this story as part of Bharat Sajjai of Stulibhadra and Bhadrabahu Swami. Bhadrabahu Swami is the last living Chaud Purvadar. Stulibhadra as also the last living Chaud Purvadar, but only the knowledge up to 10 Purvas, and the last 4 Purvas only with the basic text rather than the detailed meaning was known to Stulibhadra. And subsequent to that, the knowledge carried on dwindling. So, Indra Maharaja at the feet of Simandar Swami is asking this question, that is there anybody in Bharat Kshetra who can explain the nature of Nigod to me? So Simandar Swami directs him, gives him the name of Kalik Acharya, and he also explained to him about the importance of Satrunjay Tirth, and he explains to him the detail about Satrunjay as well in Bharat Kshetra. And Indra is curious and takes the form of, he dresses up or takes the form of an old Brahmin and goes to the place where Kalikacharya was stationed in this city of Pend, and bows down to him and asks him about the nature of Nigod. Now, at this time when Indra arrives, apart from Kalikacharya in the Upashray that they were stationed, none of his sishyas or none of his other people with him are actually there. Kalikacharya explains to him the nature of Nigod, and the way he explains it so amazes Indra that he gets a really clear understanding of the nature of Nigod. Now, in the versions of the story that I've read, I cannot get a lot of detail as to what was described, the nature of Nigod, where it is some of the basic things that we've just talked about, but I'm sure there is a lot more behind this. All that must have been explained by Kalikacharya to Indra, and therefore Indra, the king of gods, of devs, from the first Devlok, is truly amazed and is very impressed by the knowledge of Kalikacharya. Then, to test his knowledge further, Indra says to Kalikacharya that I am old and I wish to become a monk. Can you tell me how many years are left in my life as this person now? So he is asking, now just to remind everybody, Indra or Devs have Audignan as something that they are born with, like we are all born with the ability to understand things. So that's called Mati and Shrut Gnan. And Devlok, all the Devs, all the people born in Narak have an extra sensory perception knowledge called Audignan. So Indra is Audignani. But to test the level of knowledge of Kalikacharya, he says, I want to become a monk. How many years have I got left for this life? And that's a relevant and a valid question, that I'm old. I may die pretty soon. I just want to know whether I want to, but whether it's the right thing to do. So Kalikacharya tells him that your remaining lifespan is 2 Sagaropam. Now, Sagaropam is an extremely long time, and this would be a standard length of the lifespan of Devs and Indra from this Devlok. So Indra is again amazed that what this means, that Kalikacharya has recognized him as a Dev. He has recognized him as somebody from that particular or that particular part of Devlok, and his remaining Ayushya is 2 Sagaropams. That is, by our counting, an infinite amount of time. A Sagaropam is what is described as Koda Kodi Palyopam. Palyopam is an extremely long time as well, and this is much greater than that. So Kalikacharya has recognized him as the Indra of the first Devlok, even though he's standing in front of Kalikacharya as an old Brahmin. So Indra then reveals his true form and says, okay, your disciples have gone out probably to get some gochari food. I will go once they come here. When they come back, so Indra has the desire to present himself to the other monks as well. And he adds the word, so that people can see my actual roop, the way Indras and Devs look. So જેથી તેઓ મારું રૂપ આ કાળમાં પણ જોઈ શકે. So normally we do not have or we are not rewarded by to see a Dev generally in these times, whereas in the past, at the time of Bhagavan Mahavir and before that, and probably for quite some time after that, Devs used to visit, but now that is probably very rare. So Indra says, let me wait until all your disciples come back. Kalikacharya says that that would not be very beneficial if some of the munis, looking at your beauty, looking at your tej, looking at how good and well you look, and what would be obvious is also how much wealth, enjoyment, etc. would be behind that. When they see you like that, they may be tempted to change or exchange their tap for the kinds of material happiness that you are blessed with, or the kind of body that you are blessed with. તમારું રૂપ જોઈને કોઈ મુનિઓ તપના અને ચારિત્રના પ્રભાવથી તેવું રૂપ મેળવવાના નિયાણું કરી બેસે તે વિરાધક થાય. That means that would not be the right thing and they would actually spoil their spiritual progress. So therefore I would urge you not to remain here until my disciples come back. So Indra says to him that I want people to know that I've been here, because he is obviously impressed by Kalikacharya and wants to leave some kind of a memento for that, so that people recognize that an Indra has visited Kalikacharya in this time. Indre પોતે ત્યાં આવ્યાની પ્રતીતિ માટે what he does is that the place where Kalikacharya and his disciples are living is a large open hall, and upashras used to be built like that in the past, and this hall has 84 pillars, and it's got a large door at one end of the building. So with the power that he had, what Indra does is he moves that door from one part of the building to another part of the building in a split second, and leaves that as evidence that he has been there. Now one would question, how is that possible? The power of Devs is phenomenal, and they can manipulate matter in many different ways. They can use matter like what we are used to, that is called aharak matter. They can also manipulate matter called Vaikriya matter. Vaikriya matter is something that can change shape. So Devs have that kind of abilities. So he does that and then disappears. When the other disciples come back, Kalikacharya informs them about the visit from Indra, and as proof of his visit, he shows them the change in the position of the door of the upashray. So his disciples are convinced. So these are two of the about 4 stories that are mentioned with respect to this Kalikacharya. So in this Sajjai, when we recite the name of all the great men, Kalikacharya is mentioned, but there are 3 great men with the same name. So the 3 stories, the stories of these 3 great acharyas is mentioned here. Okay, so that is the end of this particular session regarding Kalikacharya. We will now go on to the discussion about Paryushan. As you said, it starts next Tuesday, and I'm sure you're all getting ready for it. And we hope that everybody takes part in all the activities during Paryushan as much as possible, and at least attends the various events that are going to be held. There will be satsangs from Potus Bar by Jayesh Bhai. Also in the northwest area, we will have Swadhyay in the morning. There's pravachan on all 8 days. And there is a certain format that is followed during Paryushan for those pravachans on all those 8 days. And in the evening, as you all know, there will be Pratikraman and some Bhavna and some other activities going on. So please participate in everything that you can. You all know about the tap during Paryushan. And briefly, for the next 10-15 minutes, we will talk about the 5 kartavyas of Paryushan. But before I start on that, are there any questions regarding Kalikacharya? Nilma? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, not the Kalikacharya, but you said from Nigodh, when one life goes to moksha
Mhm.
or Siddhashila, that's when one soul will come out from the Nigodh. So
Mhm.
is there any chance that once you're out of Nigodh, that you can ever go back to it?
Yes. But you remain in the Vyavhar Rasi, not the Avyavhar Rasi. So
Mhm.
when we Vyavhar Rasi is when you remain in circulation. So your ability to move from that to the other more complex and more advanced life forms is not limited to another soul going to moksha. So once you've been released from the non circulatory part of Nigodh, that is the permanent state that we start off with, or Anadi Anant, but once that ends, then you are out and free, the soul is free. It may go back to a different part of Nigodh, but then would not be dependent on another soul being released from another soul going to moksha to be released from that part. You understand what I'm saying? So Nigodh has 2 parts, Vyavhar Rasi and Avyavhar Rasi. Avyavhar Rasi is what is released from Avyavhar Rasi is what is dependent on one other soul going to moksha. Once we are in Vyavhar Rasi, then that dependence is gone.
So that means that basically it's based on your karma after that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So it's based on your karma after that. So you may slowly progress, but because the burden of karma from the time that we are in Nigodh is so great that all the karmas have accumulated or have been always there. So what did the soul do to acquire those karmas in the first instance? Nothing. That is the nature of our beginning, basically. So we start off in Nigodh, it's so laden with karmas, and being almost dead. So the distinction between life and non-life is minuscule, but it is still life. And once we are released, then everything that we do after that adds up. But the huge burden that we have almost guarantees us a very, very long journey from that point to moksha. There are extremely rare example of somebody who was very lucky, who had only one life after escape from Nigodh as a tree, and the following life from the life of a tree, she became Marudeva Mata, who is the mother of Bhagwan Rushabdev. And in that life as Marudeva Mata, she achieved Keval Gnan and went to moksha in that life. So her journey from the time of release from Nigodh to moksha was extremely short, meaning just 2 lives. And that is almost an impossible situation. But as luck would have it, it happened in our time. It happened to somebody that we hear about all the time. And there is something to make you wonder in amazement as to that being the case. But that did happen. Okay. All right. Any other question? No. Okay. So, what does the word Paryushan mean? There are different meanings, but one commonly accepted and one that we have probably all heard about before is Paryushan means to stay near your soul or within your soul. So turn yourself, your upyog, your awareness, your thoughts, your behavior, your speech, everything to reflect on who you are actually. That means to understand the true nature of the soul and to try and get as near to the soul as possible. So what is the true nature of the soul? All the great guns of Tirthankar Paramatmas, Siddh Paramatmas, that is the true nature of the soul. It is not evident for us at the moment, for ourselves, because we are laden with karmas, but also as a result of those karmas, our level of understanding, our ignorance makes it difficult for us to understand and experience some of the basic awareness of the soul. So, Paryushan, like all Jain festivals, are spiritual festivals. Paryushan is a spiritual festival. Soon after Paryushan, sometime in October, we'll have the Ambel Uli, the second one this year. So that usually falls in March and in October. And there are many other important festivals, but all Jain festivals are directed to inform us about making the best use of our human life to further our spiritual progress, because there is no guarantee when we'll get a human life again. During Paryushan, there are 5 kartavyas that are described that we will talk about briefly today. You will hear a lot about these during the pravachans in Paryushan. So try and attend those pravachans if you can, or listen to them on Zoom. I think on YouTube. The Sunday, the daily satsang from Potus Bar by Jayesh Bhai will be, I think, broadcast on a daily basis. So the first kartavya, or the 5 essential duties that a Shravak, Shravika, a Jain should perform during these 8 days of Paryushan, the first of them is Amari Parvartan, meaning to ensure that in these 8 days, your life restricts the amount of violence that you commit during those 8 days. So the basic activities that we normally do during those 8 in our daily lives, we would weed out those that are not non-violent as much as possible. Some very advanced practitioners actually spend the 8 days of Paryushan in Pausad, meaning they live the life of a monk for those 8 days. So, and they do an attai in those 8 days, or if not possible, they may eat for a couple of days, but they would be living in an upashray, not in their own home. And that is how Paushad Vrat is carried out. But most of us would find it very difficult or impossible. So there are certain things that we would try and do. Amari Pravartan, meaning we would maybe, for example, avoid gardening in those 8 days so that we don't harm the plants and other insects that are prevalent in the garden. We would be careful about what we eat and drink. So if those of us who still eat kandmud may want to give up kandmud during those 8 days, we would try and eat before sunset in those 8 days as well, and try and do as much of the activities that Jains would normally do throughout the year, but those of us who find that difficult would make efforts to at least do some or all of these activities during Paryushan. So we would reduce the amount of violence. We also collect funds for saving animals destined for the slaughterhouse. So Jeevdaya, or to feed animals like cows in the Panjara poles. And we help other people. So that is all part and parcel of Amari Pravartan. Then the second kartavya is Sadharmik Bhakti, meaning recognizing your fellow Jains and helping them as much as possible, specifically for fulfilling their need, trying to find out if there is anything in particular that they need. That is the true nature of Sadharmik Bhakti. But the way we practice it here generally is because we do not particularly have a lot of people in dire need, but there are people in India and elsewhere who may have all kinds of difficulties, including financial difficulties, and good Shravaks would identify them and help them in a quiet way so that they are not embarrassed. And that is part and parcel of Sadharmik Bhakti. But around here, what we would say is that Prabhavna that we do after Pratikraman or following religious events would count as Sadharmik Bhakti. We have a Savansari Bhojan where we all contribute to that Bhojan as part of Sadharmik Bhakti, that we are helping to feed fellow Jains. So we do some of that. Kshamapna is the most important, that everybody remembers and knows, that we recognize the wrongs that we have done throughout the year, people who we have hurt, people we have had conflicts with, people we have had fights with, and forgive them, forget the insults or any incidents that would have happened, and ask for their forgiveness and forgive them ourselves. So not maintain any enmity towards any living being. That is the teaching and the practice of Kshamapna, which is particularly emphasized during Paryushan, as you all know. It doesn't start on the last day when we say everybody. It should start before Paryushan, and as we enter Paryushan on day 1, our minds should be free of any kind of animosity towards any living being, so that the 8 days of Paryushan actually become very successful and very beneficial spiritually for all of us. So the time to start the building up the bhav of kshamapna, of forgiving everybody, every living being, forgiving and asking for forgiveness from people, that should start, if not before, at least from day one of the Paryushan, and it ends on the last day when we say Michhami Dukadam. Atham Tap is the activity of doing tap, and what is prescribed is 3 upas together if possible. If that is not possible, then 3 upas on separate days, not consecutive, maybe. If that is not possible either, if one is unable to do upas at all, then the alternatives that are described is 6 ayambils, 12 ekashna, 24 boyasna, meaning ekashna is eating once, vyasna is eating twice, ayambil, you know. And if no similar tap is possible and people find it extremely difficult, then the last alternative is to do 20 Naukarwadi recitation for one upvas, and that is 108 Naukars on the rosary beads times 20. So that is Attham Tap, and the 5th Kartavya during Paryushan is Chaitya Paripati. Normally, the way we conduct it here is after Paryushan, we go out to 5 different Jin Mandirs, Derasas within the city or outside the city. So normally a tour is conducted where you would go to different temples at different terraces. So Portis Bar, South London, now we've got Colindale, we've got Kenton Derasar, we've got the Derasar in Bushi, and we could include the Derasar in Leicester. So that is Chaitya Paripati. Chaitya Paripati is conducted during Paryushan is a reminder, but a lot of people do Chaitya Paripati on many other days of the year as well. So that is all about reminding you about the activities, the 5 kartavyas during Paryushan, so that we can start preparing for it. And I'll end the class here today, unless somebody's got a question. Nilma?
I'm so sorry asking too many questions.
No, you're welcome.
The
I'm
first
glad.
one you mentioned in Paryushan is to do with the ahimsa.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had this dilemma, that especially the gardening part.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when you have a gardener coming to do your gardening, okay, you don't ideally want them to come because of ahimsa, but then at the same time, by saying no to your gardener, are you not depriving them of their livelihood? And isn't that sort of an ahimsa?
The benefit and the cost benefit ratio would definitely favor not calling your gardener on that day. I mean, if you wanted to be really generous, you could say, don't come on any of these 8 days, but I will pay you.
I had this conversation with my gardener last year.
Yeah.
And he said, no, he will not take the money unless he comes. So I have this dilemma now.
Yeah, he's being very honest, and you need to tell him that, look, this is our important festival, and we generally avoid any violent activity, and you and I both know that there is some degree of violence to different life forms in the gardening, and this is something as part of our practice. I mean, you probably have a regular gardener. We do not. So he only comes when we call him, and that too at his convenience. But I understand your dilemma. But if I mean, he probably has, and I presume he doesn't come every day. He just comes,
No, he comes once a fortnight, but
yeah. So
that
once a
happens to be
fortnight.
during Paryushan.
Yeah. So ideally, we would miss that one particular fortnight and call him back after that week is over. So instead of, so your week changes basically. And
Mhm.
so instead of 2 weeks, he comes after 3 weeks then.
Okay. I'll speak to him about that then. Thank
Yeah.
you.
If possible. But thanks for raising this, because I think we all struggle with all different things. But as much as possible, if we can accomplish some of these things, then it takes us further, because then these habits are influencing our thought processes, the state of our soul, etc. Okay. Anybody else? Is there any questions?
I think Bijal had a question. Bijal, if you unmute and ask the question.
You sent something on the chat?
Yes, she has.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Bijal?
Hello, sorry. I wanted to ask about Chaitya Paripati and why is it Panch Derasar?
That is the tradition. I don't know the exact answer, but I presume it doesn't have to be 5. It could be more than that. But I presume it's something to do with the fact that if you want to build up a level of involvement that lasts for the day or for a long enough time, then this would be like a pilgrimage. So before you go on a pilgrimage, you are building up to it, you are making plans for traveling, you're making plans for attending those various terraces, you're researching how you're going to get there, what you're going to do there. You have conversations with the sanghs that you're going to visit, and you do it generally in a group. And all that activities that accompanies the preparation for Chaitya Paripati is all beneficial. There is enthusiasm, there is a desire which doesn't necessarily just start and end on the day. So that is incorporating a much greater benefit over a period of time. So I remember a few years ago, we went on this Chaitya Paripati organized from by the community. So you prepare for it, and on the day when everybody was coming, sat in the bus, I was amazed by the number of people who had brought food to share with everybody on the bus. So it became like a picnic. But there is a camaraderie there. There is an involvement of the stavans, bhajan, people talking about religion. So the talk is generally about dharma rather than about all the other things that we do. So 5 is a good number, but I don't know the exact answer, Bijal. Sorry, as to why only 5. Why not more? Why not less? But 5 is a good number, I would think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Rajib, I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the significance of doing the evening pratikaman instead of the daytime pratikaman?
Normally we got Panch Pratikaman. So the Raya Pratikaman in the morning is a daily Pratikaman. So is the Devsya Pratikaman in the evening. Normally Raya Pratikaman is done individually by the person in their own homes. The Devsya Pratikaman, if whenever possible, should be done with the Sangh, meaning with other people, because the atmosphere between when you do it on your own and when you actually are within the Sangh is very different. And the build-up of good vibes and good bhav, the potential for that build-up is much greater when you're doing it with other people. And it's generally only possible to do that in the evenings. So Devsiya Pratikama traditionally is done with the Sangh, and we do it in the evening, the Devsiya Pratikama, and the other Pratikama. So on the second day of Paryushan this year, it will be Chaudas, so we'll be doing the Pakhi Pratikaman then, and on the last day, the Savansari Pratikaman. But because it is possible, the of Panch Pratikaman, the only one that is done in the morning is the Raya Pratikaman. But during Paryushan or even throughout the year, devout Shravaks should be doing Pratikaman on a daily basis, 2 of them, morning and evening. Some may not be able to do the morning Pratikaman, but may do the evening Pratikaman on a regular basis. There are some Shravaks who do both, and also some Samayiks in between, and Devdarshan. But during Paryushan, obviously one should try and go to the temple and do puja, darshan as much as possible, at least during those 8 days. So at least darshan for those 8 days as much as possible. Okay. Anything else?
Sorry, I've got one more. The Chodas is on the second day. Usually it falls on the third day. Is there a reason why it changes? Is it just to do with the moon?
It's to do with the calendar, with the Jyotish and how it's decided, and it does vary between different sanghs sometimes. So if you Google the start date of the Paryushan, sometimes there are differences. So and the day that Chaudas falls is sometimes different. Occasionally there have been differences on the day of the Choth as well. So these are slightly different interpretations of the calendar that are set out. I'm not very well versed with the reasons why this appear, not every year, but some years they do. And in different sanghs, you may follow one calendar, and in other sanghs, you may follow a slightly different calendar. So you may see some differences.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think we don't have anybody else. Thank you all very much. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of the great Tirthankar Paramatmas or Guru Bhagwans on the principles of Jain Dharma, I ask for forgiveness. जिनाग्ना विरुद्ध कायम पण बुलायो केवय विचारो ते सभी मनोचन काय करी तस्मिच्छामि दुक्कडम सर्वमंगल मांगल्यम सर्वकल्याण कारणम प्रधानम सर्वधर्माणाम जैनम जयति शासनम. Thank you all very much. We have gone a quarter hour more than the scheduled time. I hope you're okay with that. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Meera. Kavit.